Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I just want to break down a little bit of the maintenance that we do on just our 6 units. So again, we manage roughly about 52 units um, on like a well for other people, and then we own 6 ourselves. And I wanted to break down like what's basically first 3 months of the year, the maintenance requests that we had come in, because there's probably a lot of people out there thinking, oh, I can't buy a property because I'm going to have the tenant calling at 2 a.m. because their toilet's plugged, or I'm going to have the tenant call at, when I'm gone on vacation because, you know, the sink is not going to drain, something like that. Well, that's not always true. If you have the proper systems in place and quality work done at your units, you most likely will never have to deal with something that's out of the ordinary. You might from time to time to get a plugged toilet or a clogged drain, whatever it might be, but they're not going to be consistent, and that's the huge thing. You don't want to keep going back for the same problem every single month, because then you're doing something wrong or your tenant is doing something wrong, and you want to fix that immediately. So the first problem that we had came up in February. I think it was in February, and the tenant just reached out to us saying the heat was not getting up to temperature where the thermostat was, or the furnace wasn't, producing enough heat to bring the unit temperature up to where the thermostat was. So it, we went there. It was just, I think it was like a call at, I don't know, it was during the day. She didn't call us at 2 a.m. or whatever. And we said we'd be out there immediately because it is winter in Buffalo and you want to have heat in your property. So we went there and actually figured out it was just the furnace filter. So last year we had a problem with the same furnace, but it was a inducer fan motor. I think I'm saying that correct. So we had to replace that. But this one was just a furnace filter. So we went there, of course, bought a $8, $10 filter, whatever it was, replaced it, and that was it. So that was preventative maintenance that we should have done at the beginning of the winter season, but we just forgot about. So that could have been prevented. Number two is actually the same unit, and again, could be prevented as well, but the tenant locked herself out of the unit because she locked the bottom door handle for the front door. And unfortunately, we didn't have a key for that because the previous tenant put that door handle in, and we never used it when we were renovating the unit, but she accidentally did it, I think it was once, and she's been there for 3 or 4 months by now. And we are like, all right, we should do this the right way. So we bought a new door handle and we went there to fix it. So now, we don't have these problems. But again, this problem could have been totally solved by just having taken the time to buy one before a new tenant moved in, a doorknob, and then you have the keys for it. And then you can give the keys to the tenant, prior to that. Um, but she was using the upper lock, which we have a keypad for. So that's why it was only like very infrequently, of course, I think one time that she used the bottom one out of the past 3 months that she locked herself out, but we fixed that. So, again, the first two problems, nothing major. Second one, this is a different unit, but it's with regards to the 2-in-1 washer and dryer. So we gave this a shot, just trying to figure out, if these washers and dryers that are the same unit are a viable option for us, because it saved a lot of time on running gas because it's all electric. And that was honestly, that was the biggest, we didn't want to run gas all the way up to the second floor. So that was a big time saver too. And I would say they're a little bit less heavy when you're bringing them up the, 2 flights of stairs. But in this case, the tenant just called us saying that her clothes weren't drying properly. So we went there, we deduced the problem to be a clogged heat pump vent, or the fins on the heat pump, and that was just from lint going in there. So on the top, there's like your lint tray. So they were cleaning that out, which was great. But some of the lint still got by the first filter and was clogged on the fins for the heat pump. So it took me about 15 minutes to do that one. And then there's actually another filter for lint in the lower part of the unit. So I had to take that out and clean that as well. So the total job may have taken me about 45 minutes to do, which was a little bit longer, but now I can go back and do it again very quickly. And also, it needs to be on a constant time too, because it's normal for those things to get clogged. So you want to make sure that if you have any equipment or appliances that you know need to be routinely cleaned or maintained, you want to do that on a consistent basis. So one, you're not going to break the machine, but two, you're not caught off guard when the tenant calls you. So that was what the third one. The fourth call we had in the past 3 months was a P trap in the bathroom. So it's one of those flexible ones that we used, and it was knocked off. So the tenant just called us saying that there was water underneath the bathroom sink, and was just letting us know. So we were freaking out about it because we thought it was actually like a burst pipe because it was very cold, or just a leaking valve or something like that, and or a fitting, to be more specific. So we were there within a few hours. And that's because I did figure it out with like the first 5 minutes of her sending us the text that it wasn't something crazy. But we were there that night, went there, just tightened it up, showed them if you do push a lot of stuff in here and this gets knocked off again, you just have to tighten this if you have water coming out. But hopefully, fingers crossed, they learn, they won't push their items underneath the sink. And luckily, because this was on upper unit, none of the lower units belongings or that unit was actually damaged. So that was almost a catastrophe avoided too. If they let that go longer, then you're dealing with mold and remediation, and it's just not fun. So that was number 4. I would also throw in these next two. They were just kind of preventative cleanups that we did. And the first one is, of course, in Buffalo, you're going to get a lot of snow. So we were out there clearing the sidewalks, the city sidewalks, and then our own property sidewalks, because we didn't want anyone slipping or falling. That's a huge liability on our end. And in the city of Buffalo, you are actually responsible for cleaning your portion of the sidewalk. So after every snowfall, which was maybe once a week from January to February, so there's maybe 8 times, we went out there and we just cleared out the sidewalks, put some salt down. And even though in our leases it tells the tenant that it's their responsibility to clear the sidewalks, they don't always do it. Just a part of being a landlord. So you have to go there, just shovel, make sure everything's cleaned up, put the salt down, and then you won't get sued. So it's a very easy fix to this, a really bad problem if you end up in a legal battle with them. Or, I mean, worse, someone just slips and breaks their hand, and now you have, a medical issue too. So that was number 1. Number 2 is the spring cleanups, which we just did because we had a great stretch of warm weather the past week. So we went to every property, which was just 3 properties, and cleaned up raked the lawns, cleaned up any garbage that was left there from the winter. And we removed a bush that was in one of the front properties just because the weather was getting nice, and just stuff that makes the property a lot more appealing to tenants, especially when the spring starts. Well, when we start getting closer to spring and the grass starts growing, it helps with the growth of the grass when you rake the lawns, and also you're not having garbage on the property too. So the curb appeal is huge, and the sooner you can get to that, the better it looks. So we also were doing we pulled the bush out too because we're going to do new flower beds in front of all of our properties there. Again, just lifting the curb appeal and making it look good for the tenants and prospective tenants too, because we're going to have one vacancy coming up in April. And then, so that was the 2 preventative maintenance type of deals that we did. But I think we were on 5 like maintenance calls, and then we have a 6th one, which was one of our tenants messaged us saying that there was a smell of lighter fluid every time she lit the stove. So I went there, checked it out, deduced that it was the polyurethane used for staining the floors in the lower unit that was drafting up and getting to the upper unit, and then causing that smell when the burners were on, or when the oven was on. And I did a little research on this, and it is likely, if you do any painting inside, use any stains, whatever chemicals you might be using, cleaners, it can make your natural gas appliances produce a weird smell when you're using them, because it's burning in the ambient air, there's these chemicals and the particles in there still, and it's burning those off. So she was concerned about that, rightfully so. So we went there, um, took a look at the appliance. Everything seemed to work fine. The burners would start up immediately. The oven was working fine. And as an extra precaution, I actually brought in a gas tester and a CO2 or carbon dioxide detector as well, so that hopefully if it was producing something that I wasn't catching, it was like a natural gas leak. I tested that, didn't come back with any you know leaks. And then also if the CO2 is producing CO2, the detector is going to pick that up too. But luckily, I haven't had any problems, so that was taken care of. And that was, I think, $100 and maybe an hour of my time going there as well. I would say this one was actually very recent too. Within the last week, we had to replace a furnace in one of our units, and it was unfortunate because the unit that it happened in, the tenant just moved in March 1st. So I think on the 4th of March, he messaged saying the temperature is not increasing at all in the unit. Can you come and check it out? So we went there. We thought it was something with the exhaust for the furnace. Then we narrowed it down. It was the motherboard on the furnace. And this was an old furnace. I think it was probably installed at least 25 years ago. So it's definitely did its time. And we just ended up replacing it. So we bought a new furnace for $1,000, had someone put it in, install it for another 1,000. So $2,000. That was the biggest expense we've actually maintenance expense we've had in all of our properties, is to replace a furnace. So that was something you have to have budgeted in. It was unfortunate, but also when we bought this property, this was a purchase we made in December. And I'm going to break down this video too. Actually, have we're going to refinance out of this property as well because we bought it in cash. So I'll break down a video of the purchase and why we purchased it, and then going from there, the refinance. But when we purchased this property, we knew that the furnaces were pretty old, so they were going to break, and then we have to replace them. So that was all accounted for, and that was sooner than later. So 4 months after we purchased it, one of the furnaces go. So that was quickly fixed. I think the request came in March 4th, and we had it installed by March 6th, so 2 days. And then lastly, this is not really maintenance related, but it's a CapEx project that we moved up from the beginning, or from the end of March to the beginning, and it was replacing the roof. But it's important that I mention this because these are things you all want to think about. If you're going to refinance a property, you want it to be in the best condition that it can be, before the refinance. So like I said, we're in the process of refinancing this property with the new roof now. And if I were to wait to the end of March, well, that's just, it's like rolling the dice. If the appraiser comes in and says, I want to schedule something for the 15th of March in 5 days, well, the roof's not done. So that maybe decreases my appraised value by $25,000, $30,000. And that's a huge, difference from getting your goal, pulling out enough money to keep yourself in the game with enough capital to go, pursue your next deal, versus maybe just paying off your debts and paying yourself back, and that's it. So you want to make sure that's all accounted for. So again, not a maintenance necessarily requested from the tenant. There wasn't any leaks in the property, but I just want to let you know that you can pull projects forward, and you should pull projects forward in order to stay on your timeline or speed it up. And in this case, we sped up our timeline, our refinancing timeline. Um, so yeah, that's all. I mean, it kind of sounds like a lot, but honestly, I would say over the last 3 months for our 6 units, we probably had 5 to 7 hours between Christian and myself of going to maintenance calls. And if you exclude you keep the furnace included, it probably cost us $2,500. Like it's yeah. So I guess just to give you, I'll leave it there, and you can decide if that's too much, if that's a lot less than you thought it would be for 6 units. But I hope it's the the latter statement where it's a lot less than you thought it would be, because getting into real estate is extremely important, especially if you do it at a younger age. So I'm a big advocate of that. I think I started late. I mean, there's people on YouTube that have started when they were 18, 19 years old, and I started, well, buying my first property when I was 22, so 21, and that's that's up to you to decide, but I hope you can start sooner than later. So with that, if you got value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you can watch more videos like this. And I very much appreciate any comments that you guys leave. So if you have any ideas of extra or new videos you want me to make, leave it in the comment section. I've seen a bunch of people comment, and I plan on making those videos. I just have a schedule that I'm trying to stick to, so I'm going to throw those videos in when I can. But thank you, and that's all I have for you guys today. So take care, and we'll talk soon.